Hi everyone, I'm Sandy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I have my May reading wrap up for you. A little later than I normally like to do it. I'm just a bit behind. There's been a fair amount going on. I'm actually changing jobs. I've had now a week off, which has been magnificent, but it hasn't enabled me to catch up on much. I'm behind on comments. I'm behind on watching. I'm just behind on, it feels like everything in relation to BookTube, including my reading. Oh my goodness. May ended up being a very light reading month. And I don't know if it's because I was so distracted by everything else going on. I'm not sure, but I was even on vacation for 4 days in May, and it didn't help me read anymore, which is shocking for me. Normally when I'm on a trip, I read a very large amount, and I am able to just get caught up on just about everything when I'm on a trip. So yeah, I'm not sure what's happening. But let's go ahead and get into the meat of the wrap up for the 1001 book countdown. If you're not familiar with the 1001 book countdown, I will leave a card up here for you where you can go and check out the original video. But basically, I'm reading books off of the 1001 books you must read before you die list and slowly making my way through that. As part of my monthly wrap up, what I've been doing is recapping what the numbers are. So I started the month at 813 and my second number was 37. Now, what I do every year at the beginning of the year is pre-select 52 books that I like to try and focus on throughout the year with the idea of getting that number down to 0. Not been successful any of the years I've been doing this, but I'm still working on it, still trying. It's not going well so far this year, but I am still trying. Where I ended up at the end of the month was actually at 811. I only read 2 books off of the 1001 book list. Yeah, I just really struggled for whatever reason to read really anything in the month of May, but definitely books off of the 1001 list. And then the bottom number went to 35. So the 2 books I did read were on my 2024 list, which was great. But in order to be on track, that number should be 26 at the end of June. I don't see that happening. 9 books so far in June. I've only read 2, so I don't know that that's happening. But I do also have been ranking the books every month and giving kind of an idea of which ones I really, really liked. And ranking 2 books is, fine. The first book is actually, I'll put it on this side. The first book is actually this one, God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater by Kurt Vonnegut. This is my least favorite of the 2 that I read. I just didn't like it as much as Slaughterhouse-Five. I didn't connect with it as much as Slaughterhouse-Five. I wanted to, but it just didn't work for me. There's something about the narrator in this that just his story or how he was kind of coming across. And I didn't like Mr. Rosewater very much. So yeah, this was my least favorite. The second book that I have that I finished was my 1001 book club pick, which was The Waves by Virginia Woolf. This one is another stream of consciousness one. And, to be honest, stream of consciousness is not my typical thing. I know I don't like stream of consciousness and I struggle with her books. There was a lot to love about this book. I really liked the beginning of it. I liked how Virginia Woolf kind of showed the passage of time in very subtle ways. I thought the language and the prose was truly beautiful in parts of this book. I just couldn't tell you overall what was it really about. Well, I don't know. I mean, there were a group of kids in the beginning and they grew older, kind of, and the waves is kind of interspersed throughout. That's what I remember about this one. So those are the 2 books that I read for the 1001 book countdown. Not great. As far as my 2 projects go, my oldest on my TBR, I did not read any off of my oldest on my TBR list in May. I'm not sure why. I was supposed to read I Am Malala, didn't read it. It wasn't a good month. Like I said, I think I read maybe 6 books in total. So I didn't read any off of my TBR veterans. My subscriber favorite project that I also have, I read 1, which was The Study for Obedience by Sarah Bernstein. And it was a very short book. I ended up giving it about a 3-star. It's rated 3.07 on Goodreads as well, which in fairness, I don't know if I was in the right mind space to read that particular book when I read it. Very happy, of course, that I read it, but that's the only one I made it to in the month of May off of my subscriber favorites as well. My step project and my inspirational book, I did end up reading this one, The Last Season by Eric Blum. Randy Morgenstern was legendary for finding missing people in the High Sierra. Then one day he went missing himself. Actually, this book was really good. I did like quite a bit about his story. He was a mountain ranger, forest ranger, and he was getting very upset and frustrated with the lack of resources, with the lack of supplies, with the lack of accountability, all these different pieces, and was just very, very upset. He was going through a divorce at the time, and suddenly he just disappeared. And it was a lot of that, just trying to search for him, as well as talking about the Forest Service, about the different pieces, about how rangers, when they go missing, what supplies they did have and didn't have at the time. With the advances in technology, you would think that this would be better. I'm not sure if it is better. I mean, do they get the funding to get like a GPS locator on them now? I don't know if that's true or not. But his story, the thing that I thought was really interesting is there was a lot of speculation about whether or not he had committed suicide because he was so depressed and he was kind of closing some things out. And everyone who knew him well had said that there's no way that he would have done that to his fellow rangers, like them trying to have to find him and knowing the resource drain that it would have on everybody, that isn't something that he would do. And you do end up in the end finding out what actually happened to him. And it was very sad. It was just a circumstance where he had an accident, and the circumstances of the people looking for him and how they missed him. And so, yeah, I did like it. I thought it was very well done. It's sad. It's one of those that, you get kind of like that. They work in this area for so long too. I think rangers and partial, after reading Andrea Langford's novel as well, that they become disillusioned with kind of like the outdoors, and it loses some of its specialness. And for me, that hasn't happened. I still love the outdoors, but this was a great one. I did decide what book I was going to read in the month of June. Normally I do this as a separate video, but this month I'm combining it. I decided to read Adrift by Stephen Callahan, 67 Days Lost at Sea. This will be my inspirational book for the month of June. Spoiler, I've already read it, but I'll talk about it later. So yeah, that was one that I ended up picking up for June as my inspirational book. All right. Outside of that, I ended up reading a couple books that were just books to pick up. One was Hooked by Emily McIntyre. This book is fabled as kind of like a dark romance, not a fairy tale retelling, but the names of the characters are pretty darn familiar in it. They had names like Hook and Smee and Peter and Wendy and the Lost Boys. Like, okay, so this is obviously using character names from Peter Pan, but the book is dark, twisted, goes beyond kind of even conventional stuff a lot, and is just out there. And so that combined with the children's story characters was like, yowza. I'm not sure. This book is definitely not for everyone. I read it and was kind of like, wow, do I want to keep reading? I did end up buying the second book, which is called Scarred, which is apparently a riff on The Lion King of all things, but I haven't picked it up quite yet. So yeah, I did end up reading that one. And my favorite read of the month was probably this one, Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher. I loved this story again because it had that found family aspect to it, which I thought was really, really well done. A young girl has 3 impossible tasks that she is trying to accomplish in order to save her sister. And the old witch, or I think she was a witch in here, and set those tasks knowing that they would be impossible. And then she did them, which was really cool. There's a great animal character in this. I love that character so much. If you've read that, you'll know what the character is. I like her whole story. I like the characters that were coming in and saving her and just trying to help with her. I thought all of that was really good. And it was definitely my favorite. My favorite book of the month was definitely Nettle and Bone. So I really want to read more T. Kingfisher, but I haven't picked up anything else yet by this particular author. The last book, which I almost forgot, I did do a I had an arc that I read, which I already have a video out about that, from Mind Games by Nora Roberts. And I also read Sabriel by Garth Nix. I read this with Dia at Novel Idea, Jack at Spread Book Joy, and Gemma from Gemma Books. And it was pretty successful. I like that the main character was female. I thought that was great. And her whole story, ended up being kind of a middle of the road read, but there was a lot that I really liked about it. So I am still exploring fantasy genre, trying to get into that and wanting to read more of that. And it has been going really well. I'm so glad I have a group of people to read that particular genre with, because I don't know if I'd pick it up on my own. But I think I read a lot more fantasy than I realized, given some of the books I've been buying recently. But yeah. As far as my step challenge goes, oh boy. So in the month, I ended up walking 260,328 steps. I managed to scrape away part of the deficit that I have for this year and picked up 5,508 steps ahead, which is amazing. I'm so glad about that. Overall, I'm still behind about 16,442. A lot of those steps came at when we were in New York. We were just walking thousands and thousands of steps every single day, and it made it very easy to get ahead in that space. So that is where the bulk of the steps came from, was on that little trip that we did. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty light reading month when I look at what I had planned to read in June or in May. I think I had set it pretty light in May because I was not going to set an actual real TBR in a lot of ways. And that was to my detriment, because without that actual real physical TBR, then I just kind of didn't read anything. So I fixed that in June. I've already read far more in June than I read in May. So I don't know. It's kind of nice to take a little bit of a break, but it is very unlike me. Normally, I always have some kind of a book in my hand, and this month I didn't. So yeah, that is my reading update for May. What did you read in May? What was your favorite book? I'd love to hear that. Hopefully, I will get caught up on comments fairly soon. I will try my darndest to do that. And I really do appreciate everyone who is leaving comments. It's very, very much appreciated. So, as always, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, thanks. Bye.